Dr. Stückelberger, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Can you tell us what you do? What is your background?
Yes, I've been my whole life a scientist, actually, so health scientist. I started in biology, then I have a complicated CV, as many women who survive in the academic world, but mainly I've been doing research and training, teaching my whole life, but more so, more and more, since very early on, I was in WHO, doing my master degree on mental health differential in diagnosis, cross-cultural diagnosis, which I even posted on my website. And then I was taken in a geriatric unit with WHO Collaborative Studies and the Hospital of Geneva, Switzerland, to do research. And research was always and more for political decisions. So since the 90s, I've been deputy director of the Swiss National Program on Aging, 12 million francs, and we had to do science for politics, for politicians, decision-making, and for the people. And then I was also, a deputy director at the same time for the Interdisciplinary Center of Gerontology Geriatrics. So my first part of life was a lot on aging, the life course, health, differential men, women, a lot of multidisciplinary factors. And I was paid by the Faculty of Medicine, although I started in psychology, then I went to medicine very quickly. So I did a PhD on population, aging, health, subjective versus objective health, on a big cohort. Because of my positions, I collaborated very quickly with WHO. Mm-hmm. We created an international network on aging. This is how I understood more and more how the United Nations works, how WHO works. Since '94, I was expert there, taken as a rapporteur, a young rapporteur speaking all those languages. and then the politicians started to ask me to do events, and I organized twice the UN Open Days. Mm-hmm. So that was my first part of life. I got a prize from Kofi Annan for doing so much work in science, for politicians, science for people. Then the second part was from 2000 on in public health. And this is where I started more and more to be in WHO in the capacity of on the research ethics committee for 4 years. I have all the credentials, so no conflict of interest, everything. And then what happened in these courses where I was teaching public health, actually my PhD, I have always been on public health. It's just not topic that is recognized academically. You have to know that. It's starting now. So the Geneva University asked me to take a mandate with WHO because I was so involved with the United Nations. And I did that, and it was on international health regulation. And that was in 2009. And it was a very interesting mandate. So I was collaborating closely with WHO Lyon, the education program, and WHO Geneva, because I know everybody in the alert and response unit. What is interesting in what I'm going to say is I've experimented the will to stop training people on preparedness plan, because we did an implementation program for 3 years with Georgetown University, Pretoria, and me for the University of Geneva. It was, the whole international health regulation is to prepare countries and member states to be ready for a pandemic, to prevent a pandemic, and to act quickly and readily. Mm-hmm. So the aim then, I thought, was very noble and very good. And I said, I helped WHO Europe to also do preparedness plan for the Eastern Bloc during a workshop. I have all the documents, I have everything. And then we won the renewal of the mandate of 3 years in 2013. And suddenly they announced that there is no fund. Japan has not paid for that. When we had not trained all the regions at all, we had trained part of Africa, part of Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, Europe part, America part, but it was definitely not, and I always said we should do a publication of training, and they never did. I did one for ethics. So I saw there that there is something wrong already. Then I started teaching this in the University of Geneva on the Global Health and Human Rights Summer School that I organized with colleagues, and I was in charge of the International Health Regulation Week, which I was doing. And WHO, Bruce Plotkin, a lawyer who was working on the international regulation in WHO, came to tell me that I cannot teach this. And I told him, who are you to tell me what I can teach or not? And we had a lunch in WHO that was quite muscly, because I said, it's my right to teach whatever I want, and I don't understand why you don't teach this. I was involved also with the European Union, and I have a lot of expertise in the international world. So that's where I am now. And if I come to you, I have more to say, but I want to go to the topic. So, the International Health Regulation was adopted in 2005, but implemented and come into force in 2008. And from 2008, they wanted to do implementation training for all the regions.
Yes. That makes a lot of sense, in particular when I see it in the context of what Frau Behrendt just told us.
Because what I did not mention previously was that I also did country missions for the IHR Secretariat, and also know Bruce Plotkin.
Oh, you know him.
I worked there as well and did some guidance issues and things. So I think we have to speak to each other.
Okay, great, you know them. Yeah. Switzerland is the center, and I speak that as a Norwegian. It's the center of a lot of corruption, because there we have one of the most important NGO, it's Gavi, the Global Alliance for Vaccine Initiative, which the foundation Bill Gates has, which has, I tell you, I have the papers, total immunity. Total. They can do whatever they want. The police cannot come and look into their computer. When the pandemic happened, what they say is pandemic, I was in South Korea for a big meeting, and I realized there is something not right and not corresponding to the international health regulation when I traveled back. And I think this is very weird. The news says one thing and people don't behave the same in the airports. So I started to look, and I realized over this whole year, all the breaches compared to the international health regulation and the preparedness plan. And I'm working now for a lawyer in Quebec, who's called Dominique Desjarlais. You know, I organized the Stockholm Peace Summit post-COVID, where I invited you and you couldn't come. And he was there with two other lawyers, Rocco Galati and Maître Brouza for France, because I don't think we will solve this public health problem and population economic problem without lawyers. It's impossible. So what I'm doing now with Maître Desjarlais, I'm finding out a bit more, and I have 4 points I can talk to you about. First, but you know, as Sylvia is there, she's great because she can confirm and just compliment. First, that this obligation is signed by 194 member states, but it is embedded in the constitution of WHO. So they don't need to adopt it. It is immediately approved, and it's an obligation. So it is legally binding.
Which
directly.
One? What, the international health regulations or what?
Yes, the international. And this is the trick, because nobody knows this. It's in the papers. But you have to go and dig, and it's what, you know, that's what I'm finding out. You have to go and dig the inconsistencies of everything they're doing to see that they are directing as a corporate agency, WHO. Because on behalf of the health security of the international health regulation, they have made a third edition, because the 2005 edition is the second edition. The first one was in 1969. But the booklet of 2005, you know, I don't know if you've seen it. The booklet, this one, you see, is 2005, but it's written second edition, and the third edition comes, I saw just now, in 2014, would enter into force in 2016. And this has made the health security a dictatorship where Director General can decide on his own to sell vaccines, to sell the PCR instead of all the documents that say you have to have a confirmation of a clinical and of there are other tests than PCR. So I'm finding out some inconsistencies that have not been used at all in law. So the first one is this, it's an obligation. So if it's an obligation, what Tedros, I'll call him Tedros, says, this Secretary General terrorist in WHO, when he says something, all the countries have to obey under law.
All the member states of the WHO, everyone
Yes.
who signed the agreement with the WHO, because automatically, because as you're saying, this is part of the constitution of the WHO, this is binding law for everyone who's a member of the WHO.
Right.
Okay.
With two reservations. There are two countries, because I was teaching that, so I know. There were two countries in 2009, in the second edition, that made reservations, and it's very interesting. It's the USA, and it is Iran.
Uh-huh.
They don't want to obey to WHO completely. The 2016 third edition. What happened in WHO, but maybe Sylvia, you were there when it happened. Bill Gates was already around. He was already, mingling, saying that he pays so much money, but he became visible when, I think it was in 2017, or you correct me, that I know this through my colleagues there, he requested to be part of the executive board of WHO like a member state.
Ah.
And it's incredible. I said, how can he dare to do this? And they went to the vote. The executive board meets every January. So, and it changes every year. And the lobby, they try to lobby the countries. Of course, he tried to bribe. But it's really an event because it is not mentioned. Maybe we can get the minutes of the executive board. They even accepted that he would be considered as a member state because of the money he gives. So this is unprecedented in a constitution of member states.
Is he now being considered as a member state?
Not officially.
But unofficially?
Not that I know. Maybe there are documents.
Unofficially, yes. And that's probably because that's why he has this immunity, right?
He has total immunity in Switzerland.
Okay. Unofficially, he probably holds that kind of status, right?
Yeah, yeah. I can tell you why it is very suspicious is because I think he has done something with every member state, the same contracts. What I found out with Swissmedic is the FDA of Switzerland, is because I gave the paper to a journalist and now I don't even find it. I can't find it. The Swissmedic has signed a contract with Bill Gates and WHO.
Aha.
And this is abnormal.
So basically he literally tried to lobby himself into the WHO as a member state to basically found the country of Bill Gatestan. That's basically what he did. I mean, at that point he would have been basically a one-man country.
Yes, he can be a dictator because he can influence the... But the fact that he was not accepted by vote, that's why the minutes would be very interesting. By vote to be a member state, he then started to sign papers for countries, that's my hypothesis, because he did it with Swissmedic. So WHO, Bill Gates, and the country in charge of accrediting treatments and vaccination are signing contracts.
So he didn't get in official capacity. He didn't get voted in. So then he tried to circumvent that and just basically went around the middleman.
Well, yeah. How can you, if you're a country, sign a contract between three signatures, Bill Gates, a country, and WHO? Because WHO signs with countries, but not, and even that I find pretty weird. You know, why does WHO have to sign with a country an agreement? I don't know. You see, this is a corporate agency doing that, but not WHO. I mean, correct me, Sylvia. But that WHO accepts to have a company, a private company, selling a merchant, signing together the three to make the surveillance and to choose the medication. I think that, Swissmedic had posted it on the website. I think that every country, that's my hypothesis, they have done this everywhere. That's why everybody says the same thing in the train, the same message. every week there's the same thing happening.
Tell us more about this immunity. How does this work?
Yeah. Okay. I can find again the document. It's also in German because Switzerland is also in German, and you can have a look. It's shocking. It's the normally NGOs, because I have been an NGO and I'm an NGO activist with academics in the UN since 20 years. An NGO has a status of accreditation to the United Nations. You can come and speak, you're an observer, but you cannot intervene in many things. And you don't have immunity. If you open an office, you are submitted to taxation. Gavi has no taxes to pay. This is very strange. Switzerland is hosting an NGO, international, who doesn't pay taxes and who has total immunity. There are clauses in there. You can just read them. I will find it for you. The police cannot come and take a computer. If there is a criminal problem in the office, the police cannot get in.
So they're criminally immune.
Yes, criminally immune
from any criminal sanctions.
Yeah, I just looked it up. They have qualified diplomatic immunity.
Aha.
Within their area of operations. Since
what's the name?
I think they have qualified diplomatic immunity, and they don't pay taxes since 2009. I just looked it up. They ratified a law in Switzerland in 2009.
Genau, darf ich das nochmal bestätigen, das weiß ich auch alles und das ist auch Untersuchungsgegenstand dieser Shared Responsibilities Untersuchung. Von daher weiß ich das nämlich, dass die es aufgenommen hat. Das ist von 2014 die Arbeit. Und ja, also wie gesagt, ich kann das nur bestätigen.
I looked it up because you just said nobody knows about that. It's actually even published on Wikipedia.
Yeah, but people don't know it because nobody cares. Because obviously,
that's the thing. Nobody cares.
Yeah, nobody.
In the details, we don't even think that it's possible.
Yes, exactly.
As citizens.
That's why we're not thinking about that. That's why we're not thinking about where is the basis for all this. Because we simply accept what is being told. And now we're going to start thinking, and I think many more people are going to start thinking, because this is extremely important information. Everything is out there in the open, but most people don't want to see it because they don't believe that that can be possible.
And I mean, it's not about saying that anyone's doing, running around harvesting organs from African children or something like that, something horrible like that. Nobody's claiming that Bill Gates is doing that or anyone is doing that.
But he could.
Yeah, that's the problem. We as a society should ask ourselves, should we endow any single person or any conglomerate of persons with such incredible amount of power without any kind of democratic responsibility and legitimacy behind themselves? That's the question we should ask ourselves, not if somebody's going to abuse that power, because the abuse is inevitable. As soon as somebody has this kind of power, they're going to abuse it. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually they're going to abuse it because simply because they can.
Mm-hmm. But why them and not us? I have NGOs. Why can they do it and not another NGO? This is the question.
Yeah. And also there's a difference with like a normal diplomatic immunity, because this is usually these people come and they just work on relationships, and maybe they have a speeding ticket, or I don't know. I mean, of course,
some kind of political legitimacy.
Also, yeah,
but not in this case. Nobody ever voted for him.
But someone comes into another country and has like total immunity also for like all business transactions and all that. I mean, that's crazy. It's absolutely.
They have less immunity than Bill Gates. Apparently, that's my friends telling me. So maybe you know more, but the diplomats don't have a total immunity.
No, they don't. Yeah.
This is a similar revelation when we were dabbling with European agencies. We found out that in the national regulations about, for example, the European Central Bank in Frankfurt, they have literal diplomatic immunity, and there is no regulation to lift it. So the head of the European Central Bank, for example, if he says, I don't want any kind of seizure of my computers, or I don't want the police in here, they can't go in.
Yeah.
It literally says that in the law. When he says no, they can't do it.
Yeah.
And that's basically the same for every European agency. And there are no regulations in place, who would be responsible to lift that immunity? It's not even conceptually possible to do that. And here it's the same, but at least with European agencies, you have at least some kind of democracy behind it. And here it's just, well, now there's immunity and he can do whatever he wants.
And the extent of this is much bigger because I know also that in Basel, they have the Bank of Settlement.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, a very important organ of this whole
International Bank of, IBS, I think.
Which can take the property away from people or something like that. I'm not a specialist in that. But what I'm saying is that it's not only Gavi, it is a whole system organized. And it's very interesting to look at the historical chronology. Because in 2009 was the first year of the implementation of this huge health security governance. And that's when Bill Gates started to sign things and started moving.
That's how we just learned about these public-private partnerships. I mean, I've known for a long time that this exists, but from what Frau Behrendt told us, it becomes very clear that the private part of this public-private partnership has taken over control. And not only have they taken over control, they're immune from everything. They're not responsible for anything. This has got to stop.
Well, I'm wondering what is the role of the Secretary General of the United Nations and of the Commission of the Human Rights here?
Yeah.
Because they are very interested. I made a manifesto. I can give it to you from Stockholm. That was the aim, where I'm asking for a survey, une enquête, that they have to go and make order in everything. We have to review everything in the United Nations, because the United Nations has been brought into this corporate agency. I have no doubt. They have not done anything since the beginning of this COVID.
Yes. I know. Well, we've seen a few statements from individuals that are members of the United Nations or work for the United Nations, which looked encouraging. But you're right. There's nothing, no official action, just like we've seen nothing from the churches. No official action that would have told the population that there is help, that there's another way of doing this, that they would stop in to stop the most egregious activities of these criminals. This is a very clear picture now. We're dealing with a bunch of criminals, but we've seen nothing from the United Nations. So that's another one of those organizations which we really seriously have to think about. Do we need them?
They actually are meeting this week until the 31st of March. And I would really suggest you write to the Haut Commissaire, High Commissioner on Human Rights, Bachelet, very quickly, and request really that things move and that lawyers take a hand on this, because
we will. We've spoken with human rights lawyers last night, and we're in the process. They prepared something for us, and we just have to read it. We have so much stuff to read.
You saw the statement of the Secretary General that there is massive human rights violation and that the United Nations has to take care of it.
Okay, very good.
He said it 2 days ago. I've posted it on my Facebook right away. But 50% good, 50% he's promoting the vaccine. So my hypothesis is that he's changing, but he cannot change completely. Otherwise, they will, put him out or something, because he has had a discussion with Pompeo a month ago or 2 months. So there is some signs that he is a good guy, but he cannot move on.
Okay, good to know. Okay, Frau Stückelberger, we are in a little bit of a bind because our next guest has only so much time. Is there something else that we need to know?
I'll tell you very quickly then. I can send you an article from David Fidler, who's a lawyer who has written an article from International Sanitary Convention to Global Health Security. He was very worried of the International Health Regulation when he wrote this, saying that it is becoming a global governance. So I think that would clarify some things too. The second is that you have to see very clearly that the change of definitions of two major things in this pandemic that justifies this international emergency declaration from all the countries, is mortality and the number of cases that are sick. But it's not only that. They are taking definitions that they changed in 2009. Two things very important. The pandemic definition has changed from being the number of cases abnormally high in deaths and in disease to, there are diseases that are spreading all over the world.
Yeah,
so they have changed in 2009.
They took the definition originally existed of three elements. One is that it's a worldwide disease, that there are a high number, and I think what they call it an abnormally or enormous high number of very sick people and an enormously high number of deaths. And they cut out the last two, and now the only requirement is that we have a worldwide disease. Right. That means that any flu can be turned into a pandemic. Actually, any cold can be turned into a pandemic. Yeah.
And it comes from WHO, and it is, I think, when Bill Gates started to change with his crowd, the definitions, what we just talked about, the immunity, everything. And the other one, that the immunity, they changed the definition of the immunity, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now the only immunity is vaccine.
Ja, das ist ganz wichtig, das wollen wir auch noch mal kurz ansprechen, die WHO. And this is probably no coincidence, because this happened in 2009. That's when Bill Gates appeared on the picture, right?
Yes, the definition of
the herd immunity is now,
But immunity is very recent.
Yes, but he's still there.
And the last small thing, very rapid, I'm sure that you saw that WHO has issued twice now, in 7th of December and on 20th of January, medical alert to a product called PCR. It is written in small that it is alert. So it is intentionally criminal to say, alert, this PCR doesn't work with the CTs, you have to find the CTs, and to not say stop.
I didn't know that.
Oh, okay.
So they have an official alert, meaning you can't use PCR tests to detect infections, and at the same time they're still pushing the PCR test as the only means or the best means to detect infections.
Yes.
That is very interesting to know.
And it's intentional, because they say in the recommendation you have to ask for the CT when you do the PCR. That in fact I can give you the reference and you can look. Because this is a key. They are intentionally putting a small alert. They are delaying the time, and they're not saying stop it.
Okay. Wow. Also, I think we pretty much covered everything thus far. We're probably going to meet again, but I'm very grateful for you taking the time and being here with us today. Same with Frau Behrendt. Also ich danke Ihnen beiden, Frau Stückelberger und Frau Behrendt. Das war extrem aufschlussreich in Bereichen, über die wir bisher so nichts wussten.
Super, danke.
Das ist sehr gut.
Okay.
Ich danke Ihnen für Ihre Arbeit auch.
Danke. Geht nicht ohne Leute wie Sie. Okay, also bis dann, ne?
Okay, tschüss.